By the end of the day, the entire department had resigned, all except me. What my manager didn't understand yet was that the company was just 3 weeks away from a multi-million-dollar audit, and I was the only one qualified to handle it. He approached me, frustrated and confused, demanding to know what was going on. So I gave him the one answer he wasn't expecting. And in that moment, he realized the situation was far more serious than he thought. This all happened in the United States. I started my career with an apprenticeship at a mid to large manufacturing company as a machine operator. After completing it, I worked in production for about a month before I was called into the office. They asked if I could temporarily cover for someone who was out on vacation. I agreed. The hours were better, and the work environment was cleaner. I was trained on the systems, which came naturally since I had already been working with those parts for about a year. When my coworker returned, management asked if I'd be interested in staying in the department permanently. I said yes. That's how I transitioned into the sales and quality department. Fast forward 7 years. Our team had grown from 5 people to 15 due to restructuring, and everything was running smoothly. We had a strong team, good communication, and a system that worked. Then things changed. My manager retired in the fall, and shortly after the holidays, we were assigned a new manager, a man in his late 20s, around my age. From the beginning, something felt off. He was dismissive, impatient, and often spoke to people in a way that felt disrespectful, especially toward younger employees and women. Around that same time, we had hired a new employee, a 19-year-old woman I personally helped train. She was kind, eager to learn, and like anyone new, she made small mistakes here and there, nothing unusual. Then came the day everything shifted. I walked into work one Tuesday morning and immediately heard raised voices. It was him. He was loudly scolding the new employee over a simple mistake. She had filled out the wrong form, something that could have been corrected in minutes. Instead, he spoke to her in a harsh and demeaning way that no one should have to experience at work. By the time I got there, she was already in tears. He turned and walked back into his office, slamming the door behind him. I went over to her right away. She was visibly shaken, so I got her a cup of coffee and brought her to one of our senior team members, someone everyone trusted. At that point, I was upset, and I wasn't the only one. I told the rest of the team what had happened. Their reaction was immediate. 3 senior employees, each with over 20 decades at the company, walked straight into his office and resigned. When they came back out, they told us he had brushed them off, saying they were no longer valuable to the company. That's when the rest of us made a decision. The decision. The entire department agreed to leave, every single one of us, except me for the time being. There was something our manager didn't know. In just 3 weeks, we had a major client audit scheduled, one tied to contracts worth millions of dollars, and I was the only one qualified to handle it. When he realized nearly the entire team had resigned, he became even more frustrated. He approached me and demanded to know what was going on. I stayed calm. I told him that when people leave in numbers like this, it's usually not about the job, it's about leadership. Then I reminded him about the upcoming audit. I could see the moment it registered. His tone shifted, and that's when I made my decision. I resigned too. What happened next changed everything. As I was walking through the production floor saying goodbye, our vice president of operations noticed something was wrong and stopped me. He asked what had happened, so I told him everything. Within minutes, he contacted the CEO and asked him to come down immediately. Not long after, the CEO and several senior executives were standing on the floor asking questions. I spoke up. I explained that the entire department had resigned due to the manager's behavior, and that none of us would return unless changes were made. They listened carefully. Then the CEO asked one question: what would it take to fix this? I gave a straightforward answer. We needed leadership that respected the people doing the work. The turning point. While we were still talking, the manager approached us. He seemed confident, almost dismissive, as if none of this was serious. He assumed I had come back to ask for my job again. Before I could respond, the CEO stepped forward. The conversation that followed was brief, professional, direct, and final. The CEO made it clear that his behavior did not align with the company's standards and that his employment was being terminated effective immediately. Aftermath. As the situation settled, the company asked me to step into a leadership role, given my experience and the trust I had built with the team over the years. I agreed, but with one condition: that any rewards or recognition tied to this situation would be shared across the entire team, because this wasn't about one person, it was about all of us. They agreed. Final outcome. The team returned. We worked together to prepare for the audit, and when the day came, we passed without a single issue. The client was satisfied, the company stayed on track, and the team came back stronger than ever. Insight. Leadership isn't about authority, it's about respect. And when that's lost, everything else eventually follows.